So if the quadratic formula is x, meaning you'll find your 0 by taking the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, then divide all of that by 2a. Okay. So we know what the discriminant is. The discriminant is this part right here. It helps us figure out how many answers we'll have. And then the whole formula says, okay, now that you know there's 2 zeros, find them. And that's when we have to do all of it, okay? So let's take a look at this first problem that we have right here. So let's do this problem. So let's take 2x squared minus 5x minus 17 equals, are you ready? It's not going to be 0. Equals negative 5. So what the heck do I do in that case? I know I need it in standard form. It looks like it's in standard form, except, man, that needs to be 0, but it's not. So I need to not only, remember how I got rid of it before? When I get rid of it, I just have to do some combining, right? So you might look at this and think, oh, my c is negative 17. Nope, not once you add 5 to it. So I'm going to have 2x squared minus 5x minus 12 equals 0. And now my a is 2, my b is negative 5, and my c is negative 12. Okay? That makes sense? All right, so now let's do this whole thing. We know the discriminant. I would like you to do this. The opposite of b. Put a parenthesis. I'm telling you it's going to save you. Plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. All of that divided by 2 times a. Hey, we've seen that 2a on the denominator before. Remember when we found the vertex? It was the opposite of b over 2a. So now I'm going to plug these in. B is negative 5, and that goes in your first 2 places. 4 times a times c divided by 2a. Okay. So this is one ginormous order of operations problem. That's all it is. There's nothing fancy about this. You just have to know the order to do it in. So let's just start from here. There's a lot of work to show. So I want to take the opposite of b. If b is negative 5, the opposite of b is positive 5. Good? Plus or minus. I want to keep that square root sign there until I actually take the square root of the number. Negative 5 times itself is positive 25. Remember what I said about whatever sign goes here? I have a negative times a positive times a negative. 2 negatives multiply to give you a positive. So I'm just going to put that plus sign there and forget about it. Okay? So I have 8 times 12, which is 96. All of that divided by 4. Okay? Then what I'm going to do is add that next. Ready? So I'm going to take the 5 plus or minus, keep your square root sign, because we didn't officially take the square root of it yet. Okay? Now, remember how I kept saying, don't forget your plus or minus. Okay, so first of all, our discriminant is positive. So I know I'm going to have 2 answers. If that was 0, I'd know I'm going to have 1. If it was negative, I'd stop. Right? If that was negative, I would say, ooh, done, no solution. This doesn't touch the x-axis anywhere. So this right here is built into the formula so that you don't forget the positive and negative. So watch what I'm going to write next. I'm going to write 5 plus or minus 11 divided by 4. Here, you separate it. You know you have 2 solutions, so set up 2 equations to find those 2 solutions. One doing 5 plus 11 divided by 4. The other doing 5 minus 11 divided by 4. Got it? So I'm actually going to write that. 5 plus 11 divided by 4. 5 minus 11 divided by 4. And then I'm going to figure each of that out. 5 plus 11 divided by 4 is going to be 16 divided by 4. One of my zeros is 4. 5 minus 11 is negative 6 divided by 4, which you could reduce and make it 3 over 2. But if we're talking zeros, you might want to put it as a decimal. Did you follow that? Yes? With me on that? So not only did I use the discriminant, if it was just side 1 of the practice sheet, you stop here. All you do is, oh, the discriminant's 121. Means I'm going to have 2 answers. You don't need to tell me what those answers are. When you flip to the back of the practice sheet, okay, there's 2 zeros. Tell me what they are. With me? All right, let's do another one. So let's take this problem, and we'll do 4w squared plus 20w plus 25 equals 0. Let's not forget about what these mean, though. Now, technically, I should know enough about a parabola to be able to say one of my zeros is -1.5. The other one's 4. If I wanted you to find the vertex, wouldn't you just add them together and divide by 2? Because it would be the halfway mark. What else do I know about this parabola? Does it open up or down? Up, because that's positive. Is there a stretch or compression? Because 2, there's a compression. What else do I know? Some of you maybe forgot about that. That's the what? The y-intercept. So I know that the y-intercept is going to be -12. And it's going to be all the way down here at -12, which means this is going to touch the y-axis at -12, and I know my zeros. Okay? All right, next problem. Here we go. It's already in standard form. It already equals 0. My A is 4. My B is 20. My C is 25. Ready? This is the hardest part, is figuring out if you have it written correctly. The opposite of B. Plus or minus B squared minus 4 times A times C. All of that divided by 2 times A. All right, fill it in. The opposite of B, if B is positive 20, plus or minus 20 squared minus 4 A C, all divided by 2A. Okay? So what's the opposite of B if B is 20? -20. Okay, this discriminant is going to tell us a lot of information. 20 times 20 is the same as 2 times 2, which is 4 with 2 zeros. Okay, I have one negative, so I know that this is going to be a negative times a positive, which is a negative. I'm not going to do 4 times 4 and get 16 and do 16 times 25 because I can't do that in my head. But I can do 4 times 25 and get 100 and do 100 times 4 in my head. 100 times 4. Interesting. What's going to happen? How many zeros am I going to have? 1. This is tricky. Because the value of the discriminant is 0, but that doesn't mean you're going to have 0 zeros. It means you're going to have 1. Right? All of that divided by 8. So watch what happens when that's 0. I have the opposite of 20 plus or minus the square root of 0 divided by 8. At this point, you don't really need to do much more because you don't need to take -20 and then add 0, then take -20 and subtract 0. You literally just have to do that because how many answers are you supposed to have? 1. And if you could do -20 divided by 8, you could reduce it down to 4 whatever, or it's just going to give you -2.5. So right now, what do I know about this quadratic equation? I know a lot about it. I know that its vertex is resting right on the x-axis at -2.5. What else do I know about it? It opens up because it's positive. I know it's really skinny because that's a 4. And what else do I know about it? Its y-intercept is what? 25. So do you remember if this was my standard 1/1, this would go somewhere in between it? And does it look like if this were to keep going that it would eventually touch the y-axis at 25? Probably. Okay? Follow me? Okay, that is the quadratic equation. We're going to do one. Well, if I were to just keep going, I don't need to do another one. But if I were to keep going and found out that that value equaled negative 31, I would just stop. It would just be, it would just be 0. You wouldn't have any solutions. All right, let's look at what happens when we have an ugly decimal, though. Okay, so if I were to get, let's do one more problem. If I were to take, I'm looking for the problem. Yeah, this is the one I want. Ready? So if I have 2x squared minus 7 equals x. Last problem. First of all, it's not in standard form, so I have to put it in standard form by doing what to both sides? So that I'm going to get 2x squared minus x minus 7. I know my a is 2, my b is negative 1, and my c is negative 7. I want to take the opposite of b, plus or minus b squared minus 4ac, and divide all that by 2 times a. B, this is why it's important, because people get confused about that. The opposite of b, plus or minus b squared minus 4ac, divided by 2a. What is the opposite of b if b is negative 1? Positive 1. Negative 1 squared is 1. Negative times a negative is a positive. 8 times 7 is 56. With me? So now I just need to do 1 plus 56 and get 57. Do I keep going? Yes. How many zeros will there be? 2. How do you know? Because the discriminant is positive. Is this like a beautiful number like 81 or 36 or 49? No. Bummer. So I'm going to have some ugly decimal. And that decimal is going to be 7.55. So I'm going to turn this into 1 plus or minus 7.55 divided by 4. At this point, you know you're going to have 2 zeros. That's when you do your 2 separate problems. 1 plus the 7.55 divided by 4, and then 1 minus. So 1 plus and 1 minus. And then you solve each of those, and you will have your zeros. So 1 plus that is 8.55. And then this is negative 6.55. And then you just use a calculator, and you divide that, and you get 2.14. And then use calculator, and you divide this, and you get 1.64. Quadratic equations, not so bad, is it? It looks really intimidating, but it's just plugging a bunch of things in correctly, solving to find the zeros, understanding what the zeros are. Got it? Okay, that's all there is to it.